Hello everyone and welcome to the first game we'll be covering from the Chennai Grandmasters tournament of 2024. Some time ago, I believe, maybe even a long time ago, it was called the Chennai Masters, but now as every participant is a Grandmaster, it is the Chennai Grandmasters and it is Vidit versus Arjun Erigaisi. Vidit 2739, Arjun 2799, even though he touched 2800, we all know that he got that 2800 rating in the live ratings, but you have to finish the month with 2800 to be actually 2800. So he's still at 2799, which means that if he finishes November with a rating over 2800, then he will officially be a 2800 player. Although I don't think anyone really puts much significance on that. Like, okay, officially FIDE does not consider you a 2800 player, but I'm pretty sure everyone takes live ratings into consideration rather than the official FIDE ratings that are published once a month. But okay. The game itself, it's really interesting. Arjun goes to a really obscure line very early on. Vidit counters his ideas, idea by idea, punch by punch, blow by blow, and the game lasted some 94 moves. It's a really cool game. Let's see what happened. Vidit with white opens with pawn to e4, and Arjun strikes with the Sicilian defense. Pawn to c5, we have knight f3, e6, the so-called French Sicilian, and pawn to c4. Not striking in the center right away. Knight to c6 and pawn to d4. Now we have captures, knight to f6. We have knight to c3, and now this is called the Kramnik variation of the Sicilian. Everything, chess-wise is Kramnik nowadays. And bishop to b4 is the main move, and it's played by pretty much everyone. But here, Arjun goes for bishop to c5. It's very rare, and it asks the question: are you interested in moving the knight to b3 or to c2? Or maybe you want to play bishop to e3 to defend your knight, but then queen to b6, and already there will be some problems here with your position. So after bishop c5, knight b3, I prefer knight to c2, but knight to b3 is the what everyone plays. I don't know, I just find that after knight to c2 I get really good positions. Bishop to b4, we have bishop to d3, and now castles king side. You could also consider to strike with d5 right away, but and we could even show it. It's a nice forcing line. Captures, e captures on d5. You could even play queen captures because the knight here is pinned, and after castles usually you could give up a bishop like this. Let's say captures, you go castles, and white has the bishop pair, but also white has the isolated c pawn that you can attack and maybe later on have a 2-to-1 advantage on the queen side. So it's a trade-off. Some prefer to have the 2 versus 1 if you manage to get rid of the isolated pawn. Some very much prefer to have the bishop pair. And while Arjun does not give up the bishop pair, he just castles. After castles by Vidit, that's exactly what Arjun does. And there is a couple of games actually where knight to e5 was played, but here we have bishop captures on c3, and it is now as of move 9 that we have a completely new game. So let's see what happens. B captures on c3, and just a nice pawn to d6 by Arjun. We have bishop to e3, rook to e8, and now rook to e1. I'm pretty sure if this was anyone else other than Arjun, or not a 2800 player, that Vidit would just march forward with pawn to f4, rook to e1. Maybe respecting his opponent a bit too much. But okay, if anyone deserves respect, it is definitely Arjun. We have queen to c7 and knight to d4, hoping for a captures to improve his pawn structure in the center, but of course Arjun will never do that. Pawn to a6, and Vidit trades. We have knight captures, queen captures, and bishop to c2. Vidit says, all right, I'm going to capture on d6. I have d5 covered, so you can't really advance the pawn to d5, and you can capture on c4 if you want. So I'm getting rid of my doubled pawn for your, well, maybe potentially strong d6 pawn. In the future, it could be a d5 pawn, but Vidit will not allow that. But Arjun captures. We have captures on d6 with the queen, and now pawn to e5. It's very nicely defended there. It prevents Vidit from executing e5, and also it frees up the light square bishop to enter the game. We have bishop to b3, attacking the queen. Queen captures on c3. Now Arjun is up a pawn, but Vidit will get a significant lead in development. We have rook a to c1, attacking the queen, and queen to d4 is probably objectively best, because okay, you get the queens off the board, you march forward with d5, and after something like knight to h5, rook to d1, you go after the pawn, and now it's a question how to handle this with black. You have to give back the pawn, so you might as well play bishop e6. Let's say rook captures, bishop captures, pawn captures, and something like g6 to get the knight back into the game. And it's a pretty equal position. It's a bishop versus knight, and Arjun would have 2 against 1 on the queen side. So that's probably what's best. But Arjun decides to keep the queens on the board, at least for the moment. We have bishop to b4 and queen to d8. Vidit now trades on d8. We have captures, captures, and rook to c7. Now he has a rook on the 7th, which, well, even on this channel, we refer to as a pig. We have rook to d7, and now rook e to c1. Rook captures on c7, rook captures, and now bishop to e6. The pawn on e4 is hanging, but of course everyone sees that the pawn cannot be captured, so bishop to e6 must be played. We have bishop captures on e6, f captures, and now pawn to f3, defending on e4, and pawn to b5. Now this is the position Arjun, a slightly worse position, as his king is on g8, very hard to activate. Vidit's rook is beautiful, and those pawns are very easy target. And Vidit should play something like pawn to h4. It prevents pawn to g5, plus you can also just start marching forward, and it's going to be a really great position for him. However, he played pawn to a3, and he allows Arjun back into the game, but you have to really figure out what's wrong with a move like pawn to a3 to make use of the position. So feel free to pause the video and try to find the best move for Arjun. It's not a winning idea or anything, it's just a way to get back into the game. If you don't play it, you're gonna have a very difficult time playing this. So what do you play here as black? Here as black, you play pawn to a5. Congratulations to everyone who found that, as it seems like a weird move, because what's the follow-up? Well, the follow-up is that if bishop to d6, which is kind of the idea in some of the lines, here it doesn't work due to knight e8, attacking the bishop and the rook. So you cannot capture, the rook is hanging, and once you move the rook, doesn't really matter where, let's say rook to c6, you will just trade captures, captures, and king f7, defend the pawn here, put a rook on b8, play b3, b4, b3, create a pass pawn, and white will suffer greatly to just get a draw here. So bishop to c3, going after the e5 pawn this way, and now pawn to b4. Sacrificing a pawn, a captures, and bishop captures on b4. Bishop captures on e5 can also be considered, but with 9 minutes on the clock, it's just very hard to keep that b pawn alive. I mean, a pawn on b4 is scary regardless of the position. Bishop captures on b4, and now rook to a1 with check, and this is all Arjun needed to equalize the position, because now the king cannot get into the game without leaving the g2 pawn hanging. So rook a2 check. We have a sort of a repetition here. Rook f1, rook to a1 check, king to f2, rook to a2 with check, king to f1, and rook to a1 with check. And now the question is Vidit interested in a draw? He says, nope, I'm not going to squander the white pieces. I was better, so I should continue playing this for a win. And he plays bishop back to e1, which means that the game is, again, alive. We have knight to h5. Okay, the knight is now coming to f4, g3 stopping that, and knight to f6. We have rook to e7 going after the e6 pawn, and rook to a3, trying to trade the doubled e pawn for the f3 pawn, king to e2, and rook to a6, nicely defending. We have bishop to c3 attacking e5, and now king to f8, challenging the rook. We have rook to b7, and now rook to a2 with check. We have bishop to b2 blocking, and now knight to d7, offering the knight for the bishop. And again, Vidit declines. We have king to e3, king to e8, and now pawn to h4. We have rook to a5, now defending the pawn so the knight can move, rook to c7. We have pawn to g6 and pawn to g4. We have pawn to h5 and pawn to g5, keeping the position closed. You don't want to trade off pawns, you want to keep fighting against the weakness that is the doubled e pawn. We have rook to a8, and now rook to c6. Going after the e pawn, we have king to f7, and now king to d3. we have rook to b8 and king to c2, rook to a8 and rook to c7. Now you have to react to the knight here. Of course, king to e8 and now rook to c6. Again, going after the pawn, king f7. Again, Arjun offers a draw, but Vidit declines. King to c3. We have, and when I say offers a draw, I don't mean that he asks Vidit, hello, good sir Vidit, are you maybe interested in a draw? But he was repeating moves, and then if Vidit also repeats moves, then it's going to be a draw. Rook to b8, attacking the bishop. Bishop to a3 now. Rook to b8 is a terrible move by Arjun, and bishop to a3 now again gives Vidit a winning position, but he has to really make sure how to use it. Rook to b1, and now rook to c7. While it is the proper idea to actually win the position, you have to bring your king to c4 first, as that will be a crucial tempo in this position. We have king to e8 now defending the knight, rook to c8 check, king back to f7, and now rook to d8. You should go back to c7 and then march your king up the board, but rook to d8 was played, and now knight to b6. We have rook to f8 with check, king to g7, and now rook to f6. Again, rook to e8 is the way to go, and then if king f7, you will give a check and then pick up the pawn. But here, rook to f6 was played, and this again allows Arjun back into the game, and he finds it, knight to a4 check. And it's such a silly way to get back into the game, because look at this, knight c4, knight b6 check, and now the problem is you cannot go up the board. You cannot go here, the pawn defends that, you cannot go here, the rook defends that, and you go to c5, then knight to d7 check picks up the rook. Well, the exchange, and then you win the game. So after knight b6, you have to go back, king c3, and again knight a4 check. Again, Arjun offers a draw by repeating moves, and again Vidit declines, king c2. We have rook to b6, and now bishop to f8 with check. We have king to h7, and now Vidit plays bishop to h6. And this looks very, very nice. However, there is no real way to do anything about the black king being stuck on h7. We have rook to b2 with check, king to d3, and now rook back to b7, not allowing any checks on the 7th rank. And now again, the idea is bring the king up the board, but we have bishop to f8 by Vidit and knight to b2 check. We have king to e2, rook to b6. Defending the pawn on e6, we have bishop to h6, and rook to c6. Now going after rook to c2 check, as the knight covers d1 and d3, so that will force the white king further back. We have rook to f7 with check, king to h8, and rook to f8 with check. King to h7, rook f7 check, king to h8, and again Vidit declines a draw, but in this position it's good that he does, because now his position is winning again. However, he has to play rook to b7 with tempo to attack the knight. Point being that after rook to b7, you don't really have rook to c2 check. If rook to c2, then king comes to e3, and now how do you play this? If rook to c3 check, you will play king to d2, and now you have a problem. Rook is hanging and the knight is hanging. So after rook to b7, you will have to move the knight, and now there is no more rook to c2. So now you play bishop to g7 with check, let's say king to g8, bishop to f6, and now you start collecting. Rook g7 check, captures, and then you capture on h5, and so on and so on. But after king h8, rook to g7 was played, and this again gives Arjun just enough counterplay to prevent Vidit from winning the game. But Vidit is already below the 1 minute mark, so it's very, very hard to play. King e3, we have rook to c3 with check, king to d2, and now rook captures on f3. We have rook captures on g6, knight to c4 with check, king to d1, and rook to f4. We have rook captures on e6, and knight to e3 with check, king d2, and knight to g4, defending the pawn here. And next you will start capturing some pawns. We have king to d3, king to g8, and now rook to e8 with check. King to h7 attacks the bishop, rook e7 check, the bishop is of course defended. We have king to g8 and rook to e8 with check. King to h7, and again Vidit declines the draw. Bishop to f8, and now we have knight to f2 with check, king to c4, and rook captures on e4 with check. King to d5, and now rook captures on h4. We have bishop to e7 and rook to g4. We have king to e6. Vidit also looking to maybe checkmate Arjun's king somehow. knight to e4, and now we have king to f5, preventing the capture of the g-pawn, knight to g3 with check, and here again Vidit is still below the 1 minute mark, and he only has 2 moves that do not lose the game. Those moves, I'm sure you know which they are king to e6 and king to f6. But Arjun tricks Vidit, and Vidit actually captures the pawn on e5, and that is a huge problem. But again, it's only a huge problem if you see how to actually win this with black. Feel free to pause the video and win the game for Arjun now, while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on breaking 2800 against a strong player like Vidit. I'm just kidding, you guys are only helping out. Arjun is the actual mastermind here. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is king to g6. Of course, you guys know that rook to e4 is the move that will win you the game. However, if you play rook e4, king f6, now you don't have a useful move. The way Arjun does it, he plays king to g6, and now look at this. There's no move you can play here. Rook to e4 is coming, whatever you play. If rook to g8 check, there's king f7, attacks the bishop, attacks the rook. So how do you play this? King e6 was played, but now again, rook e4 check, king to d7, and now knight f5. And there's nothing you can do. You cannot move the bishop, the rooks will be traded off. You cannot just remain here because Arjun just trades everything off and then starts advancing his passed pawn. And of course, a check is still nothing because king f7, and there's a triple attack on the bishop and also an attack on the rook on g8. So bishop to d8, Vidit tries to trade off rooks, but it doesn't work. Rook captures, king captures, pawn to h4. We have king to d7 and now pawn to h3. You have to stop the pawn, but this is now fairly elementary. King captures on g5. We have king to e6, king to g4, bishop to h2 blocking, and now knight to g3. We have king to f6, but also upon playing king to f6, it was in this position on move 96 that Vidit Gujrathi resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. Once, let's say, king f3 is played, that's all there is. King g5, king to g2, the bishop is hanging, you will have to capture, and then the pawn becomes a queen, and you checkmated the white king. It's force mate in 10 moves, so doesn't matter what white plays. So yeah, incredible game where Vidit, he was adamant about taking Arjun down. He says, all right, I have the white pieces, I had a better position, I outplayed him, you know, I was better, I was winning like in 5 different positions throughout the game, but you know, whenever he decided to continue, it was still an equal position, but he just wanted to win. There's no other way to explain Vidit's loss here. He wasn't satisfied with a draw, he wasn't satisfied with a loss, he wanted to win at all cost, and ended up losing the game. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And here are the world's top 10 by rating now. Arjun, with this win, overtakes Hikaru Nakamura, and Arjun Erigaisi is now world number 3. Only 2 points behind Fabiano Caruana, and then he will be some 26 points if he overtakes Fabiano, or some 26 points behind the eternal number 1, that is Magnus Carlsen. So we'll see how much he will be able to push, but it seems that Arjun is now an affirmed 2800, and he will only go up, not down. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the first game covering from the Chennai Grandmasters. Looking forward to what happens next, and you know, use that hashtag suggestion if you guys have any favorites. I would like to thank Stephen Bennett, Robert Arathon, Christopher Thompson, Rupert Miles, and Jeffrey Johnson for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions, but also everything that happens in the chess world. Thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.